Monday, the 7th of December. This is Frontier Opening Bell. I am Bosun Amofai. Welcome to the show. Ali Kansacho, the CEO and founder of Rich Frontiers Management in Nairobi, Aketude Sulaiman from Greenwich Merchant Bank in Lagos, Nigeria, and Onyeka Ijoma from the Tiva Capital Management. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for us as we start a brand new week. A quick roundup of our markets on the equity side for last week, with Nigerian market printing 0.72% in the green. The Ivorian market softened 0.39%. Egyptian market 0.31%. Friday was a weekend in Egypt, by the way. Kenya, that's a whooping 3.36%. As we saw the shares of Safaricom topping a new high. What's driving the Kenyan market resurgence? Ali will give us a sense of that very soon. South African market printed about 1% on Friday. So the East African markets, the tea growers are talking about high cost of production and says low prices are hurting. So tea prices have been about $2 or below $2 per kilogram since the year started. Layoffs by companies listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange is causing some concerns. And the Kenya Central Bank last week raised about 10 billion shillings in treasury bills. And Ethiopia Buna Insurance says its net profit was down 25% to 20 million birr in the full year 2020-2021. Ali, let's get started on this market, the NSE and the companies listed there laying off workers.
So, yes, I mean, there's been quite a number of people laid off. The total actually in Kenya is estimated at 2 million unemployed during this pandemic year. The NSE, of course, had a strong week last week, and that was largely all about a rebound from a very deeply oversold position, and an outperformance by Safaricom. Safaricom, of course, is in a sweet spot. Its demand for whether it's voice, whether it's data, whether it's mobile money has surged. And people are looking through that temporary dip in the first half, which was driven by the regulator basically saying zero fees for movement of money worth less than $10. So we're getting a little bit of a rebound at the stock market. The question is, can it build momentum? And bear in mind that 58% of the market cap in Nairobi is Safaricom. So really, where Safaricom goes, the stock market tends to follow. And the tea growers complaining about low prices. However, they have benefited from a 10.5% slide in the shilling, which is offsetting some of that price weakness. And if you look at the numbers that some of these tea companies have produced, they have actually been pretty muscular in the first half, from Williamson Tea, Kapchoroya Tea, and others. The headline about Kenya borrowing over $3 billion between May and August is correct. And this is what has set off alarm bells amongst economists in Kenya. There's been quite a big debate talking about the sustainability of this borrowing, what it's effectively being put to work for, and there are great concerns. And that Kenya's applied to both the World Bank and the IMF for further support. And I think that's what's informed some of the weakness in the shilling. T-bills, after a long period of oversubscription, last week we saw some undersubscription in the T-bill market, so we've got to keep a close eye on developments there.
Okay, thank you. Quite a whole lot of eyes to keep on developments within the central bank space around the world, and I'm sure Nigeria is not an exception, by the way. So that takes us to the West and Nigerian markets, where the whole last week Nigeria's central bank action and statements by the central bank chief will be a major focus for traders and investors and analysts this week. But next door to Nigeria is Ghana's general elections today. President Nana Akufo-Addo is recontesting, and the former president John Mahama is also recontesting. This is the third time they are meeting at the polls, and it's anyone's guess who's going to win this time around. These two main challenges are there for, but it's been pretty quiet on the political front. Some folks says the Ghanaians don't do violence when it comes to elections. Nigeria finally deposited the AFCFTA ratification document over the weekend, making it the 34th country to do so. The deadline was December the 5th. That was on Saturday. And a new 0.08% stamp duty on Nigerian securities take effect today. If you're trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the stamp duty, of course, goes to the government. And the problem between Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, with cocoa, with a chocolate maker such as Hershey and all of that, the suspension lifted placed on Hershey sustainability product by Cote d'Ivoire has been lifted. That issue has been tried to be resolved. The two largest cocoa producing countries want the best for their farmers within the country, and they are pressing the big chocolate makers in Europe and elsewhere to make sure that farmers in these two West African countries get a better share of their labor. And Senegal is posting 3.7% economic contraction in third quarter. Let me start with Akintunde Sulaiman. When you look at the Nigerian story, we'll get to the the Ghana's political issue and decisions. But last week, give us a sense of how you think we will move on this week on the market side after all that we had last week from the central bank. What's your outlook on the new week?
Thank you, Boston. You know, the full information on the full nature of the special bills has not really been out there. The CBN has not updated the market onto when this special bill will be floated. So there's still a bit of uncertainty across the markets. If we look at the fixed income market last week, it was relatively muted. A lot of investors, players stood at the sideline, but towards the end of the week, which was on Friday, we saw some bit of sell-off across the bond market, which subsequently pushed yields in the bond market upwards. And this week, we are seeing that the CBN issue bills of about 60 billion for the primary market auction. And this is from the Q1 2021 calendar that was released of about 850 billion that will be issued for the entire quarter one of next year. So already we're seeing the bullish stance of the CBN in rolling over all maturities. We saw in Q3 or Q4 and Q3 that the CBN wasn't so bullish in rolling over the entirety of the maturity. But in the auction we'll be seeing this week, we'll see the CBN will hold the entirety of its maturity. However, how the special bills will play the market is yet to be fully measured. We still see players are still skeptical, and we are looking forward that going into this week, the CBN will give more clarity as to when these bills will be issued and when the banks can start, working on and playing with these bills in order to help mop up liquidity and also create assets to investable securities for market players.
Thank you so much. At Vetiva Capital, Oyeka Ijoma, what's your take on last week's development? How are you guys positioning for this week? What's likely going to be your playbook?
I can't talk about the first playbook because I don't manage the prop accounts. However, just like Akintunde said, investors are basically waiting to see what the CBN is going to do on the special bills. In the conversation this morning, there was some talk on the special bills again at the breakfast meeting at Vetiva, and it's something that we're going to continue. It's going to continue to be a topic of conversation until we see the CBN announce that, and it's going to have an impact on trading in both the fixed income and the equity market. That said, we still expect there to be some positive momentum in the fixed income in the equity markets, this coming week, as we believe that there's still going to be enough liquidity to support, trading in that space. Because when we look at it, the CBN is still going to be concerned with, keeping borrowing costs at a low level, and they are not going to give ridiculous rates like we had before, and so investors are still going to be switch their investments between the fixed income and the space at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. We'll have a lot more to talk about the market week. Let me ask Ali, what's your take? You're far away there in East Africa, in Nairobi, but I'm sure you have an eye on the political footprints across the continent. The Ghanaians in the polls today looks all quiet.
Well, the Ghanaians are an outlier in the electoral cycle in the whole of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, right? I mean, one, you expect prizes. Two, you don't expect any ballot stuffing. And three, you expect the Ghanaians to acquit themselves with decorum. The Ghanaians, I wish they are a lodestar when it comes to holding elections on the continent. And I wish more of our countries would follow their example. When it comes to political risk, Ghana is an exception. And I think most of us watch in amazement and also a little bit of jealousy. So yes, I think whatever result comes out of there, it's going to be accepted by everybody. We're not going to get any curveballs. And in that sense, Ghana is really a bullish outlier. So let's see what happens there. Of course, we've got quite a bit of volatility still in Ethiopia at the moment. Although the Prime Minister's declared the war over, the concern is whether it metastasizes into an insurgency. That remains an issue. But Ghana, congratulations to Ghana. Really, they are the most civilized of all of us Africans. I've got to give them credit for it.
We'll give that to them. Akisede Suleiman, I'm sure you give kudos to the Ghanaians as well. It's quiet out there. You don't get so much the EU, the US issuing travel warning to Ghana because of elections and all of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with Ali. It's a different climate politically. Now they'll have to go out peacefully and choose between infrastructure and economic growth, because the two candidates have both been tested in the past. I mean, one is the incumbent, one was tested about 4 years ago and about 8 years ago, and that would mean that they both know the pros and the cons of this of both individuals. So at this point, these two will have to come look at it again, and we'll see who will make the eventual winner of this. We know one it's tilted towards infrastructure and infrastructure development, but the other is tilted highly to economic growth and economic development and economic transformation. If I were Ghanaian, I know who I will stick with, because one eventually leads to the other, but I'm not a Ghanaian, so I'll leave it to them to make their decision.
Oyeka, what do you think? Yes, infrastructure. But both candidates bring something to the table in terms of ideology. By the way, that's the good thing about this, isn't it?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. We can see very clear ideological differences between both parties, which also helps limit, the political decamping and defections that we tend to see in some other African crimes. We know that you can align yourself with the political ideology and stick with that, and you know what you are voting for, basically. The whole like Akintunde said, the whole conversation of infrastructure development and infrastructure and growth and economic growth debate is interesting, because basically one leads to the other, and it's a very clear thing.
Size of the same coin.
Yes, and you really can't have one without the other.
So when you look at let me ask Ali about Uganda, where you talk about Bob Wine and then Magufuli and some folks running across border, running to an embassy, the doors being shut and what have you. And the whole noise was all over the world.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. I mean, we've seen extraordinary volatility in the election process here in East Africa. Of course, we had the Tanzanian elections where we had that extraordinary surge in support for Magufuli, supposedly something like 2,000 basis point increase in the average that the CCM has previously got at a presidential election. We had all the drama there. And then Bobby Wine, of course, I mean, a very iconic figure, able to garner tremendous amount of support, particularly in the cities. Some of my friends tell me, Ali Khan, those numbers don't reflect the reality, but nevertheless, I think, President Museveni is taking a very repressive approach to Bobby Wine. And this is going on social media and flashing across the world. And it's not giving people confidence at this time. I mean, the Washington Post had an opinion piece where they were basically saying that the US should slow down on economic support. And if it goes to that point, that's when the problems are going to start to kick in. President Museveni has been a stalwart of presenting himself as an anchor of stability in the Horn of Africa. But, at some point, these sorts of images and this sort of repression does not favor, the West continuing to support him, especially under Joe Biden, who's spoken very differently to how Trump has spoken about these sorts of matters.
Interesting, and in summary, I think we just say congratulations to them in Ghana, how quietly they just moved through this process and they just moved on from there without hurting the economy, without hurting the markets or the image of the country when it comes to foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment. And I think for countries such as Nigeria and others, this is a very good example of how to just go through the process without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think it's just sums that up. What's in Southern Africa this morning? Yes, the Glencore, that's the CEO, Ivan Glasenberg, has named Gary Nagle, who is the head of the coal mine, to be his successor. Glencore, the iconic CEO, Ivan, is departing. JSC Group continues its acquisition in the UK's Globalcap. This morning, Goldman Sachs, according to Bloomberg, says we should buy the UK assets because Brexit is going to be in favor of the UK in terms of the FTSE will be up 13% and the pound 8%. But the news that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson may likely pull out of the deal, according to the Sun newspaper, has spooked the pound sterling on the downside. Zambia is presenting $300 million supplementary budget. How will it be financed? That's I'm sure I don't know if Ali has an idea where the money is going to come from. Sonangol is going to speed up asset sale in Angola, and the reform will continue despite COVID-19 pandemic. Ali, touch on this Zambia. I don't know. The Glencore, we're going to miss Glasenberg, aren't we?
Yes. So let me just start with Glencore. Glasenberg has been at the top, at the apex of the organization for, I think, about 18 or 16 years. He's an iconic figure in the commodity space. Of course, they've had a bunch of regulatory challenges around some of the business that they've been doing. Congo is one example. But, they've been tremendously successful. And also, they are a big financing arm for many African governments because they finance pre-sales of commodities as well. So they're a big player on the continent. This is an important development, and we'll see what that means. They're also a player in Zambia, about your next story, where the Ministry of Finance is presenting a $300 million supplementary budget at a time when you've got bonds trading at default prices and you haven't gone to the IMF for support. And he's saying, according to the interview I saw, that he's got $300 million lying around unused, and he's going to collect all that cash, and that's what's going to finance this supplementary budget. Let's see how that plays out. Sonangol, of course, has been talking about asset sales for a while. Angola has had several challenges, debt. They still haven't completed negotiations with the Chinese. You know, I saw this very young finance minister. She's in her 30s, and she was talking about how she wanted to accelerate this privatization and sell-off program. So, you know, you get reform quite often when you're under pressure. Maybe that's what you're seeing in Angola. And that JSC acquiring a stake in UK's Globalcap, they're of course partnering with the Globalcap platform in order to fast track capital raising, highly innovative group, the JSC. And I think that's also a statement regarding innovation, not looking just to pull down a platform, but also take a stake in the platform provider.
Interesting. Let's take in the Nigerian market a bit. One development, Akintide and Oyeka, when it comes to this new stamp duty that the stock exchange says will become applicable today, 0.08% on transaction. Suleiman, you first.
Yeah, I mean, moving from 0.075 to 0.08, I think it's a means for the government to boost its revenue. And this was instituted, I think, sometimes last year when the FIRS stated that securities are as well liable to pay stamp duty, and that it has to be effective. However, this it's higher cost on investment, and it has a way of discouraging investment, because we know that in as much as the government is meant to use this to show up its revenue, investors will factor this into the cost of investment, and it has a way of discouraging investment at the long run. It's not a significant move, it's not a significant change, but it all adds up, and it increases the cost of investment. On the other hand, for the government, looking at where oil prices are and the outlook for oil, it might not be so, it's not so bullish. So the government is really looking at alternative means, non-oil sector or non-oil revenue, which to a large extent are taxes and levies, would be what should show up revenue for the government. And if you look back into the past two quarters, you see that not all revenue has been what has been driving actually revenue for the government. So I think this is a good, it's giving with one hand and taking with the other. So investors have to pay, and it's good for the economy generally, because it will only mean that the government will have more funds to play around, and it will have more funds to build those needed infrastructure, because we move around Nigeria and we see that there's a whole lot of revenue needed to, transform this economy. Judicial use of revenue and judicial use of income is another conversation, but we know that what we accrue in terms of revenue in the country is not sufficient to actually boost up infrastructure. We're looking, according to reports, we need about $3 billion dollars in terms of taking us out of this infrastructure debt. And this is one of those means of government raising more revenue.
Yes, it's a whole lot of money. Infrastructure, $30 billion. It's a whole lot of money. You need to spend your budget for how many years to be able to breach the deficit gap there. But Onyeka, this is oil at $45-50 a barrel. So we might just sit back, isn't it? And enjoy the ride.
Well, yeah, so the outlook for oil prices is a bit more positive for 2021. But at the same time, there are two things involved. One, the oil market is one of the most efficient markets in the world, and so it's very prone to shocks due to information, due to publicly available information. I don't recall any year where average oil price expectations at the start of the year, ended up being anything close to what the average oil price, was at by the time the year played out. So that's one thing that we have to keep in context. And then the second thing is that we still have, according to the 2021 budget, our budget benchmark is still $30 per barrel. Unless this is changed, it means that the extra $10 per barrel that we're getting, as if average pricing is $50, the extra $10 per barrel that we're getting is going to be going to the ECA, which is not easy to withdraw from. I mean, theoretically, it's not easy to withdraw from. In the past decade or so, it's been a different story. But yeah, it's so in the end, we still need to shore up our non-oil revenue to help support the government. And the truth is that the government is looking for revenue. The stamp duties is something that have been recognized a while ago as an effective form of revenue generation from the government. But they have not updated the Stamp Duty Act in such a long time. And even then, the duties were quite low. So the government is trying to boost up its revenue through this means. And not only did they raise the rates of this, they also expanded the bracket of stamp duties to basically capture some of the other things that it was not captured that it was supposed to capture. So at the end of the day, yes, it might discourage some investment, but it is essential for the government to do it at this time for economic sustainability.
We'll have still a whole long road ahead, if you ask me. I'm going to ask Ali for his final shot in the arm on the show this morning, with World Bank giving Morocco additional $400 million for social protection program. There are a couple of other stories from North Africa, but this gets my attention. Last week, we were talking about Germany giving Morocco about 1.6 billion euros. Now, this is the World Bank bringing another $400 million. I just don't understand how these guys in North Africa seem to be getting all the money. I'm getting jealous sitting down here in Lagos.
I think this is a further example of multilateral support, outsized multilateral support for Northern Africa. And I think, we've touched on this before. This is the context, in the context of the Mediterranean economy, where the Europeans feel that North Africa is very much interconnected with themselves. Morocco has made very big infrastructure investments, the port in particular. I also noticed that El-Sisi is visiting Macron as we speak. And you have these tremendous alliances developing: El-Sisi, Egypt, France, Greece, UAE on one side, Turkey on another. And I think in this case with Morocco, they are able to thread the needle of keeping everybody on side at the moment. So these geoeconomic and geopolitical developments, I think, are what the main story remains for me.
I agree with you. I agree with you. This guy's it's a relationship thing, by the way. If they had it for these decades and all of that, they got to keep it on, because the best and the easiest gateway to get into Africa is still through the Sahel region. And these economies haven't really done badly, as it were, aside for a few political hotspots such as Algeria and Libya, by the way. Thank you so much to my panelists this morning. Thank you so much, Akitude Sulaiman, Ayika Ijama, and of course, Ali Kansachu in Nairobi. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great week also ahead. I am Bosun Amafaya. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. See you then. Bye.